Bellator versus UFC is a conversation that comes up in MMA every now and then, and every time a big Bellator champion gets a win, the media and also the Bellator champions like to bring up the fact that they are the best in the world at what they do, and the UFC and the fans of the UFC kind of always say, no, that's not really true. So in this video, I've gone through and I've put every single Bellator champion up on Tapology and every single UFC champion up on Tapology, and I'm going to compare them to each other about a potential fight. We're going to talk about the fight, predict a fight as well, and we're just going to talk about what each fighter would bring. And we're going to start with the lowest weight class. Alejandro Pantoja is the men's UFC flyweight champion, and if you guys don't know, Bellator actually very recently announced that they're going to be doing a flyweight division very recently. So it is worth noting that Bellator's flyweight division is a lot newer than the UFC's by like multiple years, because they only introduced flyweight very recently. So it is going to be between Kyoji Horiguchi and Makoto Takahashi, or Makoto Shinryu as he is known. But I think Kyoji Horiguchi probably would win this matchup for the vacant title. So I'm going to talk about Kyoji Horiguchi taking on Alejandro Pantoja, and I do believe that Alejandro Pantoja would submit Kyoji Horiguchi in a potential fight against each other. Alejandro Pantoja, super aggressive on the feet, super fun on the feet. He can do it all for the most part. But for the most part, he's actually a really solid grappler. You saw him put Brandon Moreno in multiple submission attempts, multiple rear naked choke attempts. He had an arm triangle going as well at one point against Brandon Moreno. Very slick on the ground and very dangerous on the feet as well. He dropped Brandon Moreno in the first round. He was landing good shots on Brandon Moreno throughout the fight as well. And he showed that he can kind of tough it out, because Moreno was landing good shots on the feet, but Pantoja was matching the good shots that Brandon Moreno was doing and getting his own takedowns, getting his own grappling going, potentially submitting Brandon Moreno or putting him tough positions. And I think he could do that against Kyoji Horiguchi, who's a very well-rounded fighter, a very good striker. He's a good grappler himself. Makoto Shinryu is a pure grappler, I would not pick Makoto Takahashi to beat Alejandro Pantoja at all. But Kyoji Horiguchi would make it more competitive, but I do believe at the end of the day, Alejandro Pantoja would still submit Kyoji Horiguchi within the first 2 or 3 rounds, kind of like how he has kind of beaten a lot of his most recent opponents. Just going out there super aggressive, getting submissions early, and just looking really good. So I think Pantoja, the men's UFC flyweight champion, would win that matchup. The next one is going to be Sergio Pettis taking on Aljamain Sterling, and you've kind of got to pick Aljamain Sterling in this one here. Now, Aljamain Sterling's going to be vacating the belt soon, is the rumor, but I do believe that Aljamain Sterling at 135 pounds would go out there and beat Sergio Pettis, who is a former flyweight as well. He's not the biggest guy for bantamweight. He is coming off an incredibly impressive win over Patricio Pitbull, which I will say is a very good win. He beat Patricio Pitbull, beat him up on the feet for the most of the fight, and Pitbull really had nothing for him. It was a really good performance from Sergio Pettis in that one. He beat Kyoji Horiguchi for the belt in 2021, where he was losing and then got the spinning back fist and knocked him out. So Sergio Pettis, I think, would lose to Aljamain Sterling. However, I do believe that Bellator has Patchy Mix, who would put up a very good fight against Aljamain Sterling. And I am one of those people. I do believe that Patchy Mix deserves to be in the conversation of one of the best bantamweights in the world, despite not even holding a title. But I believe when it comes down to this matchup, Aljamain Sterling, we know he's a good grappler. We know he's a tricky striker. I think he would go out there. I think he could out-grapple Sergio Pettis. I think he could take down Sergio Pettis, who is a lot smaller than Sterling. Sterling is massive for 135 pounds. I think Aljamain Sterling, the UFC bantamweight champion, would defeat Sergio Pettis in a matchup if it were to happen. The next one is pretty tough for Patricio Pitbull, because he's going to have to fight one of the greatest fighters that we've got in the modern era right now, Alexander Volkanovski. He's coming off that dominant win over Yair Rodriguez over the weekend, where he looked really good. Was not looking so good in the third round when he didn't get his wrestling going, but he managed to finish off the fight anyway. Volkanovski is one of the greatest featherweights of all time. He is the greatest featherweight on the planet right now, in my opinion. I don't think anyone else at 145 pounds can touch this guy. There are people out there picking Yair Rodriguez. I said that Yair Rodriguez was going to be a dangerous matchup for Volkanovski, and Volkanovski went out there and just dominated him. Volkanovski is on a different level right now to anyone at 145 pounds, and I think that does include Patricio Pitbull, who recently fought at 135 pounds. Pitbull is a great that isn't talked about enough. He held the lightweight title. He's held he's held the featherweight title. He tried to get the bantamweight title and he just couldn't quite do it. A lot of experience in Bellator as well. We've always kind of wanted to see Patricio Pitbull fight it in the UFC, but it's never really happened. He seems to be potentially slowing down a little bit in his career, but I think that Patricio Pitbull would lose to Alexander Volkanovski in a fight if it was to happen. So I would pick Volkanovski. And honestly, after how good he looked against Yair, I'll probably pick him to win by finish. The next one is going to be Usman Nurmagomedov from Bellator, and he would be taking on Islam Makhachev. And this is a fun fight because I believe both of these guys train together. I believe Usman Nurmagomedov is a cousin of Khabib Nurmagomedov, and Islam Makhachev is obviously a very close friend of Khabib, training partner of Khabib. Maybe related, I'm not actually too sure if they are. But this would be an interesting fight, because I think Usman Nurmagomedov is one of the greatest lightweights on the planet right now. However, he's young and he's developing, and I think you're going to see Usman Nurmagomedov have a lot of success in his career going forward. Like, he just dominated Benson Henderson in the first round. He beat Patricky Pitbull to win the bout in a very dominant performance. Before that, he wasn't really fighting the best levels of competition, but neither was Islam Makhachev before he fought Charles Oliveira. Now, I would pick Islam Makhachev in this matchup now, but the thing is, I believe that Usman Nurmagomedov has the time to develop at the age of 25 years old to become one of the greatest lightweights on the planet. I think that Usman Nurmagomedov, I apologize, if you give him a few years, he will be the greatest lightweight on the planet, no matter the promotion, if he can continue to develop, if he can continue to get better. But if they were to fight today, I would pick Islam Makhachev to win this matchup. He is going to be the bigger guy at lightweight. I think Usman Nurmagomedov potentially is the better striker, but I think Islam Makhachev would be able to out-wrestle Usman, get him down to the ground, and dominate him with the ground with his strength and just being a bigger lightweight than Usman. And just a great wrestler. You guys know what I'm trying to say. I think Islam Makhachev would be able to out-wrestle Usman Nurmagomedov. Man, I just can't say that name over and over and over again, can I? I think Usman would get out-wrestled by Islam Makhachev. He's got great wrestling himself. Of course he does. But he's a thinner build, and I think he's almost more of a striker because he's a really, really good striker. But I would say Islam would win that matchup. The next one is Yaroslav Amosov versus Leon Edwards. And I'm going to say it. There is a conversation to be had about this matchup. Now, this is a very, very similar matchup to Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman in a way where Yaroslav Amosov is going to be a striker. However, Yaroslav Amosov has a very, very similar sort of style to Kamaru Usman, which I think Leon Edwards has proven that he can defend the takedowns, keep the fight on the feet. I don't think it's going to be a secret whatsoever that Leon Edwards would be the better striker in a matchup like this if it was to happen. Yaroslav Amosov is a good striker, but he's not as good a striker as Leon Edwards. Leon Edwards is an underrated striker in my opinion. I think he is one of the best, if not the best striker in the welterweight division right now. Maybe in a pure kickboxing match against someone like Stephen Thompson could get interesting, but I think once again, Leon Edwards' striking and how good he is and how well-rounded he is, I think Edwards is just underrated. And there is a conversation to be had about this one because it would be close. Like, you got Yaroslav Amosov. He's 27-0. He's a little bit of a shorter guy for 170 pounds. He stands at 5'11", which is good because he's got a lower center of gravity, so he can get his wrestling and his grappling going. But do you think that he could take down Leon Edwards repeatedly? Because if you think that he could, then you probably would be picking Amosov in the matchup. But I believe that Leon Edwards has proven that he can defend takedowns against good wrestlers. Kamaru Usman was trying to take him down pretty regularly in both of their matchups. Now, Kamaru Usman did take him down a lot in their second encounter, but in that matchup against Usman, that was at elevation, and that did, in hindsight, really pay a big factor into that matchup now after he defeated Usman in the third fight, the second fight recently. But I think Edwards could defend the takedowns and beat up Yaroslav on the feet. But let me know what you think, because I think that there's a good argument to be had that maybe Yaroslav Amosov could beat Leon Edwards, because it is a pretty good stylistic matchup for Amosov and a bad stylistic matchup for Leon Edwards. So I think there actually is a conversation to be had here. Let me know what you think. And then the next one is Johnny Eblen taking on Israel Adesanya. And once again, potentially a conversation to be had, but it comes down to, once again, in my opinion, Israel Adesanya has proven time and time again that he's got really good takedown defense. He can keep fights on the feet, and he can just kind of, I guess, dominate fights on the feet for 5 rounds. Now, if this fight was to happen, no matter who won this fight, it would be pretty boring, I think. Unless Israel Adesanya got a knockout, I think it would suck. Johnny Eblen is a very dominant wrestler. He's a very good wrestler. He went out there and beat Anatoly Tokov, managed to out-wrestle him, out-wrestled Gegard Mousasi to win the bout. He beat John Salter, who was a very old man, but for some reason that win has aged well, which is absolutely insane. And he's taken on Fabian Edwards, who actually is the brother of Leon Edwards. Now, this is going to be interesting, and the reason why I say this is I think this matchup right here is a similar stylistic matchup to Johnny Eblen versus Israel Adesanya. Would I say that Fabian Edwards is as good a striker as Israel Adesanya? Probably not. I mean, you guys kind of understand what I mean. I think Johnny Eblen does win this fight, but it is, in a way, a similar striking matchup to Israel Adesanya versus Johnny Eblen. So maybe depending on how good Eblen looks in that matchup, maybe it could say a thing or two about how good Johnny Eblen really is. But once again, as I said, Israel Adesanya has proven time and time again he can defend takedowns against wrestlers, he can keep the fight on the feet, and he can win fights on the feet against opponents that do try and take him down. So it'll be interesting to see again, maybe if Dricus du Plessis tries to take down Israel Adesanya, and if Dricus du Plessis can have success in the wrestling. I think there's a lot of kind of conversation to be had around this fight, but I do believe that Israel Adesanya is the best middleweight on the planet right now. It does kind of hurt me to say, because I'm not really the biggest fan of Adesanya. He just kind of annoys me with his personality. But aside from that, he's kind of all good. But I think Johnny Eblen would put up a good fight. But I think the striking wouldn't be very comparable. I think Eblen could maybe wrestle. I think maybe Eblen could have success at the start. But I think Adesanya would figure him out. Keep him at range because he's a very long guy. 6'4", with a pretty long reach. He can keep him at bay. He can keep him at distance. And I think that he could outstrike Johnny Eblen to a 5-round decision or knock him out. But it wouldn't be a very fun fight in my opinion. This is a good one here. Vadim Nemkov versus Jamal Hill. People, for some reason, don't like Vadim Nemkov. I don't really know why. Vadim Nemkov is a guy that has lost to Yuri Prochazka in the past, which puts a big asterisk on his career. Because I guess you could say that Yuri Prochazka is still the champion. He did vacate the belt, and then Jamal Hill took the belt. But Vadim Nemkov, if he didn't have that asterisk on his career, and a loss to Yuri Prochazka in a fight which he was winning, and then he completely just tired out and gassed out on the stall after a 10-minute round, because that's what Ryzen has. 10-minute first rounds. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's cool, though. I think Vadim Nemkov would put up a very good fight against Jamal Hill. I really do. I think Vadim Nemkov is a good striker. He just beat up Yoel Romero, and he really beat up Yoel Romero. Like, Romero had absolutely nothing for him in that matchup. And it was weird that he couldn't finish off Yoel Romero, but Romero just has a chin of absolute steel. It's unbelievable. But I thought he looked good in that matchup. I thought it wasn't, unfortunately for Nemkov, it probably wasn't a stock increasing performance from Vadim Nemkov, but aside from that, he has looked really dominant, has looked really good. He's got a win over Ryan Bader, which is a pretty good win to have these days. He beat Phil Davis, who's an old guy. He had the no contest to Corey Anderson, which he was losing, and then he beat him in the rematch, and I think he would be a bad matchup for Jamal Hill. I do think so, and I think that Vadim Nemkov could beat Jamal Hill stylistically. Could he beat Yuri Prochazka? Maybe not, because he has lost to Yuri in the past, but I think Vadim Nemkov needs to be in the conversation of one of the best light heavyweights in the world right now. I think Vadim Nemkov would have put a very good fight up against Jamal Hill. He's a bad stylistic matchup for Jamal Hill, because not only is Vadim Nemkov a very, very good striker, and would he be able to hang with Jamal Hill on the feet? Yes, I think he would. I think he could also take down Jamal Hill as well, use his wrestling as grappling. So I think that Vadim Nemkov does have a pretty good claim to defeating Jamal Hill. I do, because he can mix it up. He's a little bit more well-rounded than Jamal Hill. Like, we know that Jamal Hill is a fantastic striker. He's proven it time and time again. We've proven as well that he's a decent grappler himself as well. He can kind of handle himself on the ground, but he doesn't want to be on the ground. And I think that's where Vadim Nemkov would put him. So I think Vadim Nemkov is a guy that should be in the conversation to defeat Jamal Hill. So yeah, that's my hot take of the day, I guess. I don't even know if that's a hot take, but let me know what you think in the comments. And then we've got a 40-year-old Ryan Bader who is the heavyweight champion of Bellator, the heavyweight division, and not only the UFC, but also Bellator, and also PFL, and also KSW, and also One Championship. The heavyweight division everywhere is a mess. There's no prospects for heavyweight anywhere, and that is why a 40-year-old Ryan Bader sits at the top of the Bellator heavyweight division, and Jon Jones sits at the top of the heavyweight division. But Jon Jones is one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest of all time. It just depends on how you view him in certain sort of instances, I guess you could say. But Jon Jones, the champion of UFC, I think he would beat Francis Ngannou. He beat Cyril Gane. I think he would beat Ryan Bader. I don't think that Jon Jones versus Ryan Bader would be all that competitive, especially a 40-year-old Ryan Bader. You know, it's just is what it is, really, to be honest. But yeah, I think Jon Jones would beat Ryan Bader. I don't think that's the very controversial take whatsoever. But let me know what you think about all of these sort of fights that could potentially happen in the comments below. Let me know if you disagree. Let me know like what you think of Bellator's roster. I think overall UFC has the best roster in depth compared to anybody, because Bellator, outside of the top 5, that just drops off, man. Like, there's just nothing. Whereas the UFC, they've got like heaps of fighters on their roster that are really, really good. A lot of guys that are top 15, like their rankings is top 15 instead of top 10 to start with. And then a lot of the guys that are in the top 25, I guess you could say, probably deserve to be in the top 15. They just don't have a number. So I think UFC has a lot more depth than Bellator, but when it comes to the top of the divisions, the champions, it is pretty competitive, you know, because I think naturally it would be. And let me know what you think in the comments below about everything, and I'll see you guys in the next video. I thought this would be an interesting one to make. I will be live for UFC Vegas 77, doing a live fight companion, and with all that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one.